Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
I'm doing very well, Sarah. Welcome back from the holidays. Miss chatting with you.
Yeah, I miss chatting with you, too. I don't know why I did that voice. It just happened.
That's okay. That's okay. It was your missing me voice.
I don't think anybody has one of those. I don't.
Maybe subconsciously, yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I heard that you were busy finally getting caught up on Homecoming.
Yeah, I finally did. And, I will freely admit that I enjoyed the series, but it's definitely a slow burn. But there's definitely points in it that's worth the payoff.
What points?
I think when we get, I don't want to, spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, and, fast forward to our talk about other things. But for me, I think it was the moment when Julia Roberts' character figured out what was going on as far as the experiments that they were doing at the facility.
Mm-hmm.
And just the scene, if I recall the scene, I think she was just in her office. It was very empty. It was her basically just, doing stuff with her hands and organizing her desk and just the emotions that she was feeling when, she figured this out. And so that was one of the highlights, for me, and also just, her relationship with Walter throughout, and then also seeing how, Walter, as the experiment continued, and the conditioning continued, how he was starting to lose, like, all the memories of the things and the jokes and stories that they told, but then at the end of the series, at least into the first season, because there is a second season, it seemed, when he started to make the connection about their time together at the center.
So there's a lot of different ways I could ask a question following that. There's almost too many questions. Because as you were talking, I was just reminding myself of everything that occurred in Homecoming. And the thing about Homecoming is the first 5 episodes you can watch in the trailer. Like, the trailer for that show, I really found to be the first 5 episodes. I wasn't into it at all. And then the moment you start to really understand what they're doing to the patients, and more importantly, what happened to her, mm-hmm. I thought it was fascinating, because everything that is shown is almost shown in reverse in a weird way.
It is.
Because you first meet her, mm-hmm. and meet her in the future, which, shout out to Sam Esmail. Like, I love him. But I think it's a pretty genius idea for how he decided to design the screen of the future in that old format with the black bars.
Yeah.
So it almost made you feel like the future was the past and the past was the future, but it was all in reverse.
Exactly.
And the fact that all of the files and just watching the investigator go through everything and the machines that were the technology, it all felt old school. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting to figure out that that's actually what's the future, and that 2018 is the past.
Right.
So, and I agree, Walter and her connection is really strong. I liked it as soon as we got to the later half of the season. The later half, episode 8, when both investigator and Julia Roberts' character wind up at the center.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece. Like, there are moments watching that where I am very confused and wondering if they're both in the same facility at the same at different times.
Exactly.
I'm like trying to figure out, but both are after the same thing. And it was just, it was so beautiful. And that's the episode that reminded me why this is Sam Esmail's show. Like, that aligns with everything he did in Mr. Robot season 3 runtime error so much.
It does.
Like, if listeners watch Homecoming, watch that episode and then go check out Mr. Robot season 3 episode title runtime error. If you appreciate the direction, you'll see it in both of those. Like,
you will. Yeah.
They're brilliant.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, now as creepy as the relationship between Walter and her was at some points, because this guy, the actor who plays Walter, is younger than me. No, he really is. I looked it up. And so it kind of is creepy at some points where I'm like, I see the chemistry, but knowing how big of an age difference, I'm also like, I don't know if it's kind of a weird mother-son relationship, friend. I don't know if there's romance here. I don't have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
But the final scene in the diner really did get to me. Like, the idea that you spent all of this time figuring out this mystery, leading yourself to this person who was just as affected as you were in all of it. And also realizing that there's a lot of emotional baggage tied up into this individual. Do you continue? Is it like that completist mentality where I have to find them? Like, this is my mission, this is my purpose. But if I do find them, what happens then? Like, do we just fall back into this weird circle pattern? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, everything you said, I agree wholeheartedly, and I can't really add much to that. Maybe just with the end, I will just say this, that in their relationship, it was interesting that they just focused on their relationship. It would have been, I think, and it added to the mystery of it because it didn't show her interactions with the other patients in the therapeutic setting. So we don't know if she just, clearly they had, Walter and her character had a definite connection, but we don't know if it's like that with all the other people. I mean, there was like the one other therapist in the facility where he was just, it lends me to think that it was not, despite how hostile he was and always, reporting on her. And I think part of that motivation was just not ruining the experiment, because Bobby Cannavale's character was, it was all bottom line and the whole military industrial complex, and just how the government just basically sees these soldiers at this facility as just widgets to, retrain them and then send them back into combat and just, use them over and over again. So there's just so many so many levels in the story that could be unpacked. But I like the fact that they only, had this, each episode be 30 minutes and really keep it overall pretty tight. But there's so many things that they can unpack, and maybe they'll explore some of those in season 2. I don't know. Right.
It's very much like Sam Esmail, he went about it the similar way that he went about season 1 of Mr. Robot. I know what I want to share and what I want to hold back on. Yeah. And if the viewers like it, then I'll get a season 2 and I'll be able to elaborate more. But
for our listeners, if you've heard the buzz about it, go check it out. Watch it when you're relatively alert and fresh. Don't do it as as if you're kind of tired, because it is a slow burn, and you could easily, if you're tired or whatever, easily fall asleep on it. Not because it's bad. It's just the pace is such that it's very It's very slow at times, but the story is very compelling at the same time.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to switch gears and go from something slow to something very fast.
Yeah.
And talk some Flash. I wanted to lead off with the Flash tonight.
Okay.
Because I have some strong opinions.
Yep.
about our Scarlet.
Drop 'em. We haven't talked about the Flash in a while, so let's hear it.
We have it, and I'm gonna get out my soapbox. This
All right, I got the
episode
popcorn
bothered
ready.
the hell out of me. No, and this episode really irritated me watching it because the trailer was really emotional. Mm-hmm. It made me feel like we were going to have a great return to form villain-wise. Mm-hmm. And almost like that infamous Zoom episode in the beginning of season 2 where Zoom drags Barry around Central City and breaks his back. Like that kind of moment.
Yeah.
Did not happen.
Nope, it did
not happen. And I really need the Flash writers to start leaving their room and going and hanging out with the Arrow writers or the Supergirl writers and heck, even the Legend of Tomorrow writers, just get some fresh air. I don't know, a new outlook on life because this was really choppy. There were 3 main plots. I have no idea what the connective thread between these 3 plots was. And there were points where I entirely forgot that Cicada was, we were doing this whole Cicada plot line. And every time he would return, I would be like, oh yeah, that puts a hold on this. There's such great material between Nora and Barry that I felt was wasted in this episode.
Yeah.
Very overshadowed, underplayed, too quickly resolved. And I find it ironic because at the beginning of the season, I was very worried that they were going to do this to the Iris and Nora rift. Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't do that. They actually gave that all the necessary time. But now she's mad at her dad and by the end of the episode, she gets it because she wants to be a hero too. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't understand. That seems way too simple.
You're right. And I wish they had explored that more as far as her being angry at Barry. And I will say, in the episode's defense, I will say, not because I'm a Flash apologist, just because I like the way Jessica Parker Kennedy played Nora. And I will say the writers did do a good job of where she was very selfish in her reasoning and understandable because, she knows the future. She knows that her father is going to die. So, the motivations were very good as far as from a storytelling standpoint. And the way she acted it was very convincing and not annoying, where it could easily have gone from very earnest to very, very grating. And it never did. So there was that, but like you, I wasn't anticipating the way you're right, the way that they had portrayed the episode. There was going to be the first epic showdown between Barry and Cicada, and Barry lost big time. I mean, we had the moment where in the Cisco episode where they've had a mini showdown. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this was not what it was played up to be. For me, I felt the episode, it was okay. we've talked. I found the Cicada origin storyline.
Say it.
Yeah, it didn't move me. I mean, I saw what they were trying to do, and
Supergirl did it better.
Huh?
Supergirl did it better.
Supergirl did it a lot better. Whether they, and even the origins. Let me stay on this before I get on the Weather Wizard. But with the Cicada storyline, we've had. I feel like the last 2 seasons, the villains in this show have been very underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And, these are supposed to be the Vo is supposed to be his greatest adversary ever. Cicada has this motivation to kill all the metas. But so far, Cicada has just felt like just another run-of-the-mill villain of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt this episode where they had many good things that they could have worked with him coming from, Deadbeat, who, they tried to set it up with his, getting his niece, custody of her because his sister being killed by a meta, and then later with the satellite during the Enlightenment. But it's just, it still just feels like a very thin, very villain of the week. And quite frankly, there's some villains of the week or some rogues like Weather Wizard, for example, that I would much rather would have seen that on the screen a whole heck of a lot more this episode than Cicada, because I just feel like, okay, yeah, I get it. Doesn't move me too much. I don't see how this is going to carry a whole season, because they have front loaded everything. So yeah, I just like, okay, get on with it. Have them show down and then move on to the next villain, because so far Cicada has been very, very the weakest link so far this season. Other than Sherlock Wells. Sherlock Wells is the weakest link. And then Cicada's next.
Yeah. We'll talk about Sherlock. But I don't know if Cicada's a weak link. The writing of Cicada has been very weak.
Yes.
And
thanks for clarifying that.
This episode just blew my mind of missed opportunities and just poor writing, because honestly, this is why I want them to talk to the Supergirl writers. Supergirl just a few weeks ago gave us a full episode of Ben Lockwood's origin story and how he became Agent Liberty. We fully understand his motivation. They gave us a perspective and how he views this world that we've seen only through Kara's eyes for so long. And that was refreshing and new and very well spent time. They're not spending any time on Cicada.
Right.
Now, it also may be because they may have made a poor casting choice. I'm sorry. Something that bothered me again this episode was his voice does not match his face. That's the way I can put it. It doesn't match. And at some points, I'm like, is that how he really sounds, or is that fake? And then there's a scene towards the end where it's a normal voice, and I'm like, what is happening here? I don't get this.
Yeah.
And you're just shown these weird glimpses where I'm sorry, I'm going to throw the kid under the bus now. The kid isn't a good actor, and it all felt forced. It didn't feel like there was really any connection except for the fact that his sister, who we never meet, we never understand that relationship, was killed by a meta. He's forced to take care of this child. Yeah. We don't see any of the real struggle. We see maybe one argument, and then before we know it, all is better, and then the world goes to hell. Yeah. it just was rushed. There was no time. There was no true development. And then it was really odd at the end how they lingered on the fact that he didn't blame the metas. He actually blamed himself. It was the doctor who brought up the metas being the problem.
Yeah.
Which, okay, so now you're telling me we've spent 7 episodes building up a villain, and he's not really even the mastermind behind this. He's a puppet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Next season. No.
Well, I think it's just, I think you identified one problem I think that the production team and the writers are have with the Flash right now. And I have to commend the Supergirl team for doing this. It's okay if you need to sideline the supporting characters for an episode. It's okay, y'all. You have 22, 23 episodes, you can do it and really use the time to fully develop this character. And I know we'll talk about Arrow, which, did that, beautifully, this week. It's okay. And because we've had glimpses of this of this origin already this season. I mean, we knew we knew the niece was there. We just, the only thing they basically fleshed out for us in this episode was, one, it was not his daughter, it's his niece. And
because that makes it better.
Yeah.
Much more interesting. What?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so Joe was wrong, but I mean, Joe was right in the sense that there was a familial family relationship there. They had the usual trope of they were forced together and hated each other, and then of course, something happens, and then he decides to turn himself around, and then the enlightenment happens, and then boom, now he's evil. But you're right, it was just too rushed, and they would have been better off. They would have been better served, quite frankly, just dropping the Weather Witch story and spending more time fleshing out this origin of Cicada this episode.
Or don't even have Cicada at all in the episode, because there's a very good parallel between Weather Witch, Weather Wizard, Nora, and Barry.
Yeah.
But
because I was excited about her.
Oh, sorry. We kept jumping back and forth between the two. Mm-hmm. And it gave not enough time to neither plot points, and therefore we just got this weird combination of the two, which felt very incomplete and unfair.
Yeah, because I agree with you there. I think they would have been better served to see if they had to, just drop one of the storylines and just focused on, Weather Wizard, and because we haven't seen Weather Wizard in forever.
No.
And there was, and his story, he was flat out like, dude, I'm a criminal, and he left because he thought it would be for the best for her not to be around a rogue, and
right.
and given Barry and XS's and Nora's storyline, I think those two things would have been better to play off each other, especially in reverse, because you have Weather Witch who does who basically wants to kill her dad, and it was a funny moment as far as dropping a truck on him, but it was kind of like, oh, that just came out of nowhere, literally.
Yeah, I could have sworn that was going to be Ralph. And we were going to see a flattened version of Ralph.
Yeah.
Where was he this episode? It's weird that now that I think about it, he wasn't in it at all.
Right.
But,
especially how it built up trying to integrate him as part of the the Flash family.
Yeah.
But they did give an opportunity to now since they brought back Killer Frost, they're like, oh, now, well, we'll just give Ralph a little break this week so we can have some moments that probably would have been written for Ralph, but now they wrote it for Killer Frost in that that end scene.
Yeah. Shout out though to Cisco. Cisco was given the hilarious joke of "Where's Helen Hunt?"
Yeah.
I appreciated that joke, and it was really funny for me. I liked Caitlin, Cisco, and Sherlock hanging out, getting all bent out of shape about Thanksgiving and everything. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I find it very odd how we go from seasons of talking about the Flash, and every episode that we break down, it always feels like Harry is brought up at some point, or Harrison Wells, or your Bard line, Tom Cavanaugh, essentially.
Yeah.
This season, I feel like we've barely ever talked about him. Like, he's just there.
Yeah.
And we're focused on so many of the other characters that, for someone who at one point was a very critical piece of this cast, I don't care if he's there or not. Like, there's something about it where I'm just like, it's not any of those characters who came before, and therefore I'm not invested in Sherlock, and if he dies, he dies.
Yeah.
Tom Cavanaugh will just be on again next season.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not, Sherlock or whatever the hell he decides to pronounce it this particular week.
Mm-hmm.
This is the, I long for HR now.
Mm-hmm.
I miss HR, and obviously I miss Harry, and I really wish they had allowed for Harry to stay around. I understand they carried that arc as far as they could have, and so I guess they wanted to try something new. But you're right. This iteration of Wells could be any. I mean, hell, the German Wells would have been, I think, more interesting. Now looking at it from the first couple episodes this season when they were introducing Sherlock.
Yeah, and also that reminds me. The name joke, it does not have to be stated every episode.
Right.
Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah, it's not Shui. It's not Shui at all.
No, it's not Shui. It's not Shui. Well, we'll see. Next week, it appears that we're going to get some classic Harrison Wells / Eobard and also just a please don't let me down with the trailer, but just a classic Flash episode of going back in time, revisiting old foes to learn how to defeat Cicada, which is weird. Okay, I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah, we did, was it season 2 or season 3 where we did that, where he went back in time to meet with Eobard?
I want to say season 2. Season 3, he went to the future to figure out a way to beat Savitar.
Yeah.
Season 2, there is a episode where he goes back, and then I like it because they really were able to blend the Flash team of season 1 with Barry from season 2. It was good. It was just good.
That was good. Yeah.
And that moment when you see in the trailer Nora and Barry standing behind Harrison Wells, you're just like, oh, this is going to be good.
It's going to, yeah.
But, I've been let down before.
There's a lot riding on this episode. I mean, it's the 100th episode. They are doing callbacks and returning to earlier parts of the timeline. And I emailed you this timeline chart that someone did found today when I was on Twitter, and somebody was explaining the various timelines for the Flash. And so I feel like I'm gonna have to have that website up when I'm watching the episode to make sense of all the various continuities and paradoxes that are going on in the storytelling at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Wow.
I mean, someone spent. I'll put it on our page. Someone spent a lot of time and effort to take the timelines and break them down from the viewer's perspective, and it's really good work too. I was like, oh yeah, now that makes sense. So yeah, we'll definitely share it, so that our listeners can look at it and use it to, whenever your head starts to hurt, trying to keep track of all the various times Barry's broken the timeline and created new ones. This someone has created a chart for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's needed for anybody who's like, hey, The Flash seems like a cool show. Let me try to jump on board. Yeah. It's too complicated. You have to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
A show that currently doesn't necessarily need any chart explanation, but has a lot going for it this season is Arrow.
Yeah.
James Bamford behind the camera again. You know, your buddy, your best friend, your pal.
My pal, yeah.
Yeah, Bam Bam.
Right. Yeah. We're part of the fan club, definitely.
Slabside Redemption. So, I've said it on the show, I don't watch Arrow for the action. I stand by that statement, even having watched this. I understand why everybody is saying it's the best episode of Arrow ever. I get it. It's a good episode. Mm-hmm. It's not my favorite. I don't think it's the best. I prefer other more subtle episodes. Mm-hmm. But something that was made very clear to me watching this one is that I remember during the hiatus you told me that I shouldn't be worried about the Flash because the writers have promised that there's going to be different arcs and they're not going to let things drag on too long. Yeah. Now, I've just submitted my complaints about the Flash, so we know that's not necessarily happening at the moment. But Arrow, like, they've managed to perfectly craft a 7-episode arc. Oliver's in prison. What happens? This was what it will be. It's not going to be a one-day fix and suddenly he's out. No, a prison arc that has a strong conclusion. Now we're going to get a tease of what life for Oliver's outside of prison, and then we're going to go into the crossover and part B of season 7 later this year. Next year. I don't know what year.
Yeah, it'll be 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometime in January.
Yeah, I guess what I'm just saying is that to me, I really like how they crafted these 7 episodes as a collective. Mm-hmm. Like, I can imagine sitting down and binging these 7 episodes and having no problem. And it was cohesive. It all built up to something. And then you have the final showdown, which is very much like a comic book. Like, trying to escape villain or trying to escape a prison with all the people you locked up.
Yeah. It definitely was a very tight unit. For me, I'll have to, I haven't dropped a Star Trek reference in a while, so I'll do it tonight. For me, it reminded me of the arc that was done for Star Trek Deep Space Nine when it went through its final arc of the Dominion War, where it was, at least that one, it was, led up to the series finale. But I just think, I was thinking of it whenever you were just breaking down how well the writers and production team did with the 7-episode arc of Oliver being in Slabside, and bringing some finality to that, part of the story, but also using it as a springboard to open up even more possibilities for Oliver, because he did change. I mean, Turner was very, having Turner as that foil in this episode really was a good way to show how Oliver, how the last 7 episodes has changed him as the Green Arrow. And if and when, just teasing what Steven said in an interview this week, moving forward, when he gets, dons the costume again, we're going to definitely see a different Oliver Queen as Green Arrow because of the experiences he's had in Slabside.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that because, I mean, we are now, he was Oliver's has been a black and white character, in his worldview. And we've seen glimpses of him trying to get a little bit more nuanced, but this experience really has allowed this character to grow and show, and we're going to hopefully see that nuance that has been missing from him, up to this point.
Right. And the way you said that, the black and whiteness of him and how he didn't do his vigilante work in the gray. It reminds me of season 1 and how it was really Felicity who challenged him in that regard and there's an episode early on in season 1 when she starts directly working with Diggle and him. And she says, this guy, yeah, he may have done a bad thing, but he has a family and he did it for the right reasons. And they kind of butted heads about it. And so I wonder if the writers are really going to use that anchor point of Oliver Reed in prison has made him see things more through a gray lens. Felicity not having Oliver around has made her move more into the darkness.
Yeah.
And start to see things more black and white.
Yep.
I think that's a great parallel. I really hope that they go through it with it. I've always wanted a dark Felicity arc, with a happy ending at the end, but still, I think it's within her right, and just like everything, I feel like they would have earned that just with the one phone conversation they had all the way in the first episode this season. It was clear that they understood what both needed to do, but they also are disagreeing with each other's methods. So I wonder, and even though Diaz is dead, I like how his final point was that, no, that's what you made her to be. Now, granted, we all know Diaz, what?
So
Diaz isn't dead?
He's not dead.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So...
But I like your point. Keep going, because I like where you're going with this. Yeah,
but it's the truth of it is that Diaz made Felicity that way because Felicity she keeps harboring on the fact that her husband, her family, everybody had to leave in this situation, and that's all because of Diaz. So I thought for the few emotional beats that they did have, I really enjoyed those. The action scenes, Daredevil may be canceled, but a lot of the camera work, a lot of the choreography in this episode, I just was like, I've seen this on Daredevil. This, very similar shots, very similar ideas going on there.
Yeah. I mean, the action scenes were definitely, one of those. It was definitely, given the camera work and the budget and everything that they had, there were some there were some very inspired work shots there. But you're right. I mean, I think the thing that worked with this episode, and something just to contrast to what we talked about with the Flash, was that they rightfully kept. They didn't do any cutaways this week. It was 100% in this prison, and the action flowed. And I know a lot of people were blown away by the action sequences, and I mean, they were. I mean, going up each level, it was like, metaphor for, all the, he's climbing to the heavens to get out of this hellhole.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was that. There was the parkour where he was, flying across, and pretty impressive given that he was doing it with a hip injury.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back in universe, it was very, the action to me drove the story, not, in a way that it was, again, it was very metaphorical as far as all the things that Oliver has endured over the time period. So yeah, visually stunning and all that. He had to rely on martial arts instead of his, trusty, bow and arrow. And, he had to do some, work, Batman-ish kind of, well, I won't say Batman, but,
Batman, yeah.
Yeah,
but, it was Batman-ish. I like you make some good points about it being metaphorical for his journey and his drive to get out of prison and be with his family and be safe, and what you were saying before about like they may have focused on Oliver, but this episode didn't come out of nowhere. Like, they've been hinting and developing all of these various plot points occurring within the prison itself throughout the first 6 episodes.
Yep.
So now that we're focused on it, you get all of the payoff. Stanley.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That I like that. I'm very intrigued because I foresee him coming back in the later half of this season and potentially having to do with some of the stuff that's going on in future Starling City. Mm. I think that he's gonna get to Felicity somehow. I'm pretty sure he's gonna go after her and William, and there's gonna be this I didn't know what you went through in prison, much like how in season 1 it was all about, well, I don't know what happened to you on the island, and why don't you ever talk about it? And then the demons return. So in a way, the prison is going to be used, his experience in jail is going to be used very much like in the early seasons, how his experience on the island was used.
Yeah, I think you're completely right on that point. And so it's good that they're, maybe we'll, I don't know, we won't have flashbacks to Slabside because he shaved the beard, but but I think you're right in that they will use those experiences. And I think getting to your point about Felicity going into the darkness, and the fact that there's been many hints, subtle and otherwise, indirect, that there is going to be some tensions with members, with Oliver's post-prison life. And, I know some folks are dropping the oh, they're going to get divorced. I'm like, no, I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think, given that Felicity is going to a more darker, outlook on things, and, probably one of the big points of consternation probably will be the fact that Oliver did not finish off Diaz when he had the chance. I think that is going to be, with this new Felicity, I think, it's going to cause some tensions between her and Oliver, because, of course, the man was bent on, after he put Oliver away, trying to kill her and William.
Right. No half measures.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to next week's episode so much.
Yeah, me too.
I've seen Twitter comments already with people who've gotten screeners, and sounds like it's not going to disappoint. It's going to set a high bar. And I really, as much as I resent the fact that the Flash gets their 100th episode without interference from the crossover, I do appreciate this from a viewer standpoint of having them have 8 episodes, all their same show. Mm-hmm. We're given the season finale. I view next week more or less along the lines of a season finale, and then right before the holiday break, we get this this larger than life experience with the crossover, new characters, completely different situations. And then we'll see the next half in 2019.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it. I think it's actually very strategic and clever and seems to be paying off for the most part.
It does. They are, I like the way you're right. I like the way they set up the schedule this season. And, I think it's to the benefit of all the shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't speak for Legends, but just looking at my Twitter and how all the Legend fans are talking about it, it seems that, folks are happy about that show as well.
Yeah. We may be, I think at the end of the day, despite my own complaints about the Flash, there's still something about these shows that makes us continue to talk about them.
Yeah.
Want to watch them, want to be up to speed on what's going on, what could be happening, speculation, because that, just like how this past week was Thanksgiving and it's important to be with family, it's like this creates a family. Like, mm-hmm. You watch these people every week, so you feel like you know them, so they're part of your family. So it's just it's a tradition.
It is.
Traditional,
unlike any other, to borrow a line.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think that is it for us tonight. Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will and Polk. That's WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. We also do have a YouTube channel, so please check that out and subscribe there too. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.